Welcome to the show. It's time to dive in. Talking sports with Evan. Let the fun begin. From the Brewers to the Packers, we cover it all. Wisconsin pride, we stand tall. The baggers on the field making history. With every touchdown, it's a victory. From Camp Randall to the court, we chill out. Wisconsin sports, we make our state proud. Feel the energy, the passion in the air. Join the conversation, we got stories to share.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's episode of Talking Sports with Evan. Waiting to be joined by Tristain Thomas, our guest here today, friend of show. We wanted to jump on really quick, get the show started, and Tristain is here. And main show idea here today, and I'm going to bring Tristain in now, and I appreciate you for jumping on here. I know you've been busy here this afternoon. We'll let you explain that in a minute. But the big thing is Buck season came to an end earliest, I think, for the first time in 10 years. And just want to get your thoughts on the Buck season and some other, Brewer Packer stuff too. But main focus is the Bucks. You can find the show at Evan with Sports on X and Talking Sports with Evan on Facebook and YouTube live every week. And on Spotify, typically 8 a.m. the following day is when the audio version goes live. And appreciate you coming on. How's things going?
As you mentioned, I've been busy. It's definitely been a busy time, but things are going well. Hope everything's well with you and everybody staying safe. We had some historic rains going and a lot of flooding going on, some washed out roads. So hope everybody is being as safe that they possibly can.
Yeah, this is the first day of this week. I'm going to peek outside before I say this. Yeah, first day of this week. At this time, it's not currently raining or threatening to rain. It's cloudy, but it's dry. And I can't say that is going to be the case tomorrow around this time, though. That's the problem.
Exactly.
Well, appreciate you jumping on. I know the Buck season didn't end how either of us wanted it to end, except for one thing that happened with the season ending when it did, which we'll get into. But just quick, let people know, minus one episode for now, how can people check out your stuff really quick?
Yeah, minus that missing episode that we're still trying to find, which was supposed to have dropped this past Tuesday. You can find me everywhere you get your podcast, Toss Tristan on Sports Show. You can find me also on tossnationmedia.com and also on social media, X and Threads at D20Double. Follow me there.
Well, if you do find it, you can just call it and title it The Lost Files. There you go. Marketing ploy right there. Yeah. So
exactly.
Like I said, the big thing I wanted to talk about first, and if we have time, we can, ask you. I have a few Brewer related or Packer related stuff to get your thoughts on, because it's been a while since we've chatted here. We've chopped it up, but the Buck season ends with a dud. Overall thoughts on the season in general before we get into the big elephant in the room. Two big elephants in the room, really.
Yeah. No kidding. It's really hard to put into words, and that's how I described it, because the talent was there. Obviously, the desire was there until that desire was essentially beaten out of them. So it's really, really hard to put into words. Underwhelming, disappointing, whatever superlative you want to put to it that's in a negative connotation, you could put to it. It was 100% avoidable, but they decided to go straight into the iceberg as opposed to trying to use evasive movers to avoid it.
Yeah, and fortunately, I guess, as I mentioned, it ended the way it did. We're going to start. Should I go right or left? What do you think?
Go left.
Okay. So I'm going to start with the biggest elephant in the room, and that's Giannis. The Packer, that's Packer. The Bucks president, new president, Racine native, he was on a show on WTMJ today, and he was asked a question regarding Giannis. I thought I had it in front of me, but it was the wrong clip, of course. But he was asked about, Giannis and whatnot, and kind of gave a non-answer. Shouldn't your answer be, hell yeah, we're prioritizing to bring Giannis back, and we're going to do everything we can to, to get him to commit to us, and we're gonna, we're willing to do whatever it takes rather than giving a non-answer.
You would think, because that's something that the now departed Peter Fagan, former Bucks president, would have done. He would have went head first into it, like he did a lot of times when he showed up at Summer League and was on the mic telling everybody, "Well, we just laugh at a lot of people for all the rumors and all the supposed stories that have come out from circles, when it's like there's one circle and none of those guys are in it." So you would think they would go straightforward and say, "Hey, look, yeah, he's a priority. Obviously, I mean, he's the franchise. I mean, superstars don't come through Milwaukee very often, and you talk about a generational player in Giannis. Yeah, yeah, we are definitely 100% going to prioritize him. But this comes to be expected from a Jimmy Haslam guy, and yeah, I've been on your program talking about Jimmy Haslam before. I've been on my program talking about Jimmy Haslam before. I've written about Jimmy Haslam before. This is the type of mentality that you're going to get as he has more and more influence over the franchise, putting his guys in place. And this is the mentality they have. Go and look at the Cleveland Browns. You now have some of that mentality within the Milwaukee Bucks. And that's why Bobby Portis came out on FanDuel. I forgot the name of the show, but on FanDuel Sports Network, saying, "Hey, Giannis wants a coach that is going to set a culture." And when you have a guy and one of the owners who does not come from a winning culture, does not cultivate a winning culture, and is now seeping into a franchise that once had a championship winning culture, there's going to be a big time clash.
Yeah, for Haslam, he I don't know if it's because he doesn't meddle why his soccer team is so good, but the basketball so far and the football team not doing very well. Like I guess figure out what works with the soccer team and do it with the basketball team too. I don't care about his football team, but that's besides the point. Giannis, where are you at right now in regards to if he's going to be traded or he coming back? Like, what percentage are you right now? I say I'm about 60-40. For the first time, I'm leaning towards he's leaving. I'm about 60-40 that he's gone, but I'm very hopeful that he stays.
Until I hear otherwise, because the people that I speak to, they've been reliable to me for well over a decade, anything regarding Giannis. And until I get the smallest inkling from them that, yeah, this could potentially happen, which I have not, which I did relay on the missing episode of Toss. Uh, I'm not even 60-40. I'm 80-20. And the only reason why I'm 80-20 is because there's always room for improvement. So you want to leave that bit of improvement there. I've been relayed that there's nothing there. That he has not demanded a trade. He's not going to demand a trade. The Bucks have not made it seem as if they are going to shop him, or there's a trade imminent. They're going to move forward with him as part of the franchise until that situation changes.
So basically he's here until it changes, I guess is the easiest way to say it.
Yeah, once that everybody's looking for that October date when he becomes eligible to sign that extension. And if he makes it known that he's not going to sign that extension, well, then that's when things could potentially change. Because after that, he has a player option. So he could either choose to accept it or decline it. And then you really have a conversation uh, to, to really have, because now power is back in his hands. Hey, I have a player option. I can opt in or I can opt out. And there's nothing you could do about it because I have that option. But until he has that power of that option, there's really nothing to speak about.
Yeah, my feeling with Giannis is they're closer to being a championship team with him than they are without him. Like
Exactly.
you talk about, well, you can trade him for assets, you can trade him for draft picks and other pieces to try to build a winning team, but I don't have a lot of faith and trust in John Horst's drafting ability, and we know what we have in Giannis. Not sure what we're going to get in a Tyler Hero, when a guy that also can't seem to stay healthy, or Ware is still a developing player. We don't know how he's going to continue to develop. I'm just bringing up two guys that were brought up in the Heat trade talks, and then I guess I'd rather keep him and try to build something around him, like the Warriors did with Curry, than ship him out of town and try to start over again.
Exactly. The same way the Warriors did with Steph Curry, the same way the Mavericks did with Dirk Nowitzki. You're talking about guys who got drafted to those teams and they've been there long term, and the franchise has been able to retool around them and go on a championship run. It's not like, oh, they were championship level teams. No, those teams actually won titles. Steph Curry's latest was because they actually had players that they were able to develop, and the coach believed in those players and actually played them. So when those moments came, big championship moments, they were able to step up and help bring Larry O'Brien Trophy back home. So I feel the Bucks are in obviously closer to a championship with them than they are without him. If he were to leave or they were to trade him, you're talking back in the doldrums of Bucks basketball. You're talking about back into the dark space of Bucks basketball. Just mediocrity, chasing the eight. I mean, chasing the 10 at this point because of the play-in. So you have to find a way to make it work. And I think they have the players on this team. The thing is, you have to have the correct teacher in place in order to make it work.
You mentioned the Mavericks. You mentioned the Warriors. Steve Kerr and Rick Carlisle at the time. Obviously, Doc didn't work. Perfect segue. You mentioned the right manager or person in charge, and then you brought up those two teams. Again, Steve Kerr, Rick Carlisle. Something Doc Rivers wasn't in Milwaukee. Obviously, he gets let go. What's your overall view of the 2.5-ish years we have with Doc Rivers?
Yeah, 2.5 years. It was not ever going to be the right fit. Now, I've documented again on your program and on my program that Doc Rivers was their guy. Doc Rivers would have been the head coach straight out. We wouldn't haven't even had a Adrian Griffin era had Doc decided not to retire and go back to TV and travel the world a little bit.
Things could have
He
been worse,
was
you're saying.
yeah, it could have been. It could have been way worse. It could have been way worse. So he was their guy. He was their guy 100% all the time. So it just didn't work because he was just not the right guy because the game has passed him by. From what I can see, the schemes that he's trying to deploy, his teachings, the way he goes about teaching, the way he goes about trying to lead. I use the term lead with air quotes because I don't think he really led very well. But the way he tried to lead was not the way it's going to work in today's NBA. And those guys are like guys like him and older guys are going to have to understand that there's going to have to be some changing that comes along with their teaching. This is the reason why actual teachers, talk about the classrooms, go through so many different trainings because there's so many different technologies and different ways and different methods that you have to teach to go along with the times. And I think coaches have to understand that you also have to evolve with the way you purvey information and lead a team and have to, you got to have your finger on the pulse of many different personalities, many different games, and all this and that. You have to evolve with the times, and I just don't think Doc ever evolved with the times. Yes, one of the winningest head coaches in all of NBA history, but that's due to longevity because he keeps getting opportunities when you see tangibly from team to team, the Clippers, the Sixers, now the Bucks, that his teachings are of games changed. It just wasn't going to work because the game has simply passed him by.
And he was able to get by with the the Clippers more so because of the talent that was there than his teachings. I think it's safe to say able to win some games in Philadelphia more so because of the talent that was there rather than the coach himself. Milwaukee clearly didn't have, which they have talent, but clearly not to the Sixers and the Clippers level. And obviously, you need somebody better teacher than him to try to teach the young talent how to play in the NBA. And it's a lot easier to do that too when you have a healthy, mostly healthy Giannis, though I'm assuming too.
Yeah, I mean, yes, yeah, a mostly healthy Giannis is definitely going to help. But the thing I would disagree with you on is that they didn't have the same talent as maybe the Sixers because if you go back and look, the problem with Doc Rivers has never been about winning games. He's always been able to win games in a regular season. The problem with Doc Rivers came in the
Playoffs. Yeah.
postseason where he had the lead, I believe, in like 8 or 9 series and lost every single one of those series. That's where the problem lies. Like, yeah, any team could be great in the regular season. You got teams that go on to win 60 plus games and then they fizzle out in the playoffs because, hey, you're beating up on bottom feeders. You don't have any bottom feeders in the playoffs. You really get tested, you really get exposed when the lights are brightest and the stage is biggest. And that was his problem. Yeah, he won a title, but it's like you said, he basically won the title more so on talent as opposed to his teachings. He also had Tom Thibodeau there, who was a defensive coordinator basically of that squad. So he definitely had help along the way, hell of a squad, hell of a coaching staff. But that was my problem with Doc. I think the Bucks do have great talent. You get a coach in there that knows how to tap into that talent, and it's not all over the place rotations and telling people to Google them. You would
Mhm.
definitely see the difference.
Yeah. Well, and to me, Doc's never been someone that relates well, even when he was quote unquote at his best. He was never one that really related to young players either. And the Bucks
Agreed.
have talent; they're just young, and he didn't know how to reach and connect to the young guys. And it's funny you bring up Tom Thibodeau. It's very funny you bring him up because I've been reading articles and looking at names popping up about possible options for the Milwaukee Bucks. I have an article from USA Today in front of me talking about the three top candidates for the Bucks job. The Milwaukee Journal Sentinels put out an article too. The USA Today, their top three choices: former Bucks player and current Celtics assistant Sam Cassell. They also have former Grizzlies coach and former Bucks assistant Taylor Jenkins, and then the former New York Knick, former Chicago Bull, former Timberwolf coach. Is that right, Timberwolf? And Tom Thibodeau. Other names I've seen is Sweeney as an assistant with the Spurs, former Bucks assistant coach. Seen his name thrown out, and I've seen Darvin Ham. Who are you out of any of those names? Do any of them really say that's the guy I want? And any of them are saying absolutely not.
I mean, so all those names I actually mentioned on Toss. I wish everybody could have heard it. Uh, Still trying to find it, but I did mention Taylor Jenkins. Obviously, with Michael Malone out, because I think they were definitely going to target him heavy. With him at North
That'd be a
Carolina now,
great
Taylor
hire.
Jenkins. Yeah, that would have been a great hire because you talk about somebody that knows how to work with a big man who is very versatile, and then the cast around him, he knows how to reach them and get them to play together. Taylor Jenkins is probably at the top of the list. You would have to think about that. I know a lot of people are trying to pump up Sean Sweeney because of his relationship with Giannis and how tight they were. But you're talking about this was a guy under Jason Kidd. And yeah, I know he went to San Antonio and he pretty much was, again, like the de facto defensive coordinator. And, it's really easy to play defense when you got Wimbenyama in the middle, getting you like 5 blocks a game. But that's a different story for a different day. But they're trying to pump that up because of the Giannis relationship. Sam Cassell has earned his opportunity to be a head coach. He's definitely paid his dues. I just don't know if he would be the fit for this squad. He's another one of those old school, hard school guys that think he could reach the younger guys, but will it be like a Tom Thibodeau situation where they end up just absolutely wore out by the time the playoffs come around? Because that's the problem with Thibodeau, which is why I did not put him on my list when I mentioned possible head coaches for the Bucks. He is a great regular season coach, and you've seen him do some great things in the postseason. But his teams always run out of gas because of the way he runs them in
Or getting
practices.
hurt.
Exactly, he just runs them straight into the dirt, and they just have no gas left when it matters most in the postseason. So I those guys are some of the guys I'm thinking about, but for all we know, it might be a out of left field candidate that we never heard of before. Another
Hey,
guy that I mentioned was the Heat assistant. Uh, the name escapes me. I mentioned his name though, but that's another name that's kind of hot in the coaching circles right now that might get an opportunity. But
find
it's
his
going to
name
be very
on
interesting. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting because you have to get this one right. You absolutely have to get this one right because this coach is going to tell you, and Bobby Portis
Chris
even said it.
Quinn.
Yes.
Quinn. I can't say his
Yeah.
name.
'Cause and then he's been with Spoelstra for a very long time. So it just soaking in, and everybody knows my affinity for Eric Spoelstra. I think he's one of the great head coaches in NBA all time. So that would be a very good option. Again, his name is starting to get out there as a hot candidate in coaching circles. I think he'll definitely get an opportunity at some point. But yeah, you have to get this one right because, as Mike Ford has mentioned, uh, he wants a coach that's going to sell the culture. And out of all those guys, and some of those guys are unproven. Taylor Jenkins definitely set a culture, especially for a young squad. When he took over the Grizzlies, John Morant was 20. Just fresh to the league, 20 years old. They set a culture on both ends of the court. They got it done defensively. They got it done offensively. So if I was going for a guy, I would go for a guy that's proven, a guy that's going to set a culture, which is exactly as missing in Milwaukee currently.
You didn't mention Darvin Ham, though. I don't know if you didn't catch me say his name, but you didn't say anything about Darvin Ham.
So I did mention Ham, but for me, and when he took over for Doc, it seemed like his message was received well by the players. But I just it's just something about Darvin that just it doesn't really move the needle for me. Can he set a culture? Can he? I don't know. He's for me. He did a great job in LA. Absolutely fantastic job. Got them to the Western Conference Finals in his first season as head coach there. Phenomenal. Because I don't know if this is the team where he could set the culture and be able to make that difference and be able to be like Giannis, look at him and say, okay, yeah, I'll follow that guy.
Well, is there a front runner for you? You mentioned a bunch of the names that are being floated around, and I'm sure there's other ones that you're more aware of than me that might be floated around. Do you have a front runner that if the Bucks had to hire somebody today, that, like I said, you would say, love that hire?
Jenkins would be the slam dunk, but he's going to be on many people's list. Again, the way he set the culture when he was Memphis's head coach is something that is sorely needed in Milwaukee. That's something that these other names, I'm not quite sure they could do to the level that would appease Giannis and keep him in Milwaukee.
So right now it's the Bucks and the Pelicans. They're the teams, if I'm not mistaken, they're the only teams that have vacancies at the head coaching position right now. You mentioned Jenkins will be on a lot of teams' lists. Do you think it's kind of a rush then to get him in the door, to interview him, to get him the job before maybe New York opens up again or Cleveland opens up again? Or if you're the Bucks, do you kind of wait and see if there's any other coaches that become available because maybe they underachieve in the playoffs?
If you're serious about keeping Giannis and you know that this team is sorely lacking a culture, which is what carried you to a title a few seasons ago, you need to have a sense of urgency. And that's what John Horst claimed to have when he fired Adrian Griffith was it's urgency. And he shoehorns Doc Rivers into position. It's a sense of urgency to take advantage of this title window. If you truly have a sense of urgency, you need to get him through those doors and interview him as quickly as possible to see if he's going to be a right fit. I'm not saying absolutely hire him, but at least get him in house, talk with him, see what his plans could be to set a culture, see what his plans will be offensively, defensively, how he can integrate Miles Turner and not have him just standing outside waiting to get the ball for three and not taking advantage of his height to go and rebound and how you're gonna have Ryan Rollins in the starting lineup and what are you gonna do with AJ Green and have him in the building to get those ideas to see if he is the guy and then you take it from there. You go to those other guys that may be on the list.
So who gets to make the decision? Is it John Horst? Is it Haslam? Is it Edens? Is it I can never remember the other owner because you never hear him ever mentioned. No, the Eden, Haslam, there's a third one I can remember his
Jamie
name.
Deanan.
Deanan, sorry, yeah. Who gets to make that decision?
It goes to Horst. Horst will bring it to ownership because that's the way it's worked for the last couple of coaching hires. So again, you're bringing it to a guy who does not have a winning culture or a bone in his body. Jimmy Haslam who's going to have a say. And I'm really scared when he becomes governor. That's going to be even worse. Right now, it's
Crosby
Eden's.
doesn't
So
become one.
you cross your fingers and hope that he decides to cut his losses and goes elsewhere. But I just don't think that's going to happen.
I only wanted him involved for his wallet. Like if he could have just, been a silent partner and let Eden and the other guy run the show, I would have been fine with that. But
yeah, and I said that on Toss too. Like if he was just there with his money, then it would be great. But he's the type of guy that, hey, if you want my money, then you're gonna get my ideas and you're gonna get my influence, and that's that.
Doesn't mean you have to listen to his ideas. And do you trust John Horst making that decision?
Horse decisions have been pretty shaky. He has not had the best draft record. Um, I will say his acquisition record via trades has been far more successful than his draft strategies.
But
But
I
you
mean, the
also look at
margarine guys too. Those marginal guys like a Rollins and a Green. He's been pretty good with that too.
exactly getting them to buy in. A one-on-one deal. Hey, just one-on-one. We believe in you. All he's great in pursuing players like that and persuading them to come on and be a part of the team. But even some of his transactions via trades and all that have been a little bit head scratching. You look at the draft capital he's given up for guys like Jay Crowder and others. It's like, yeah, yeah, you ain't Sam Presti, dude. Like you're supposed to be getting more in than you give out, but so his decision making to me is has been very shaky, and there have been some calls for a review of what he's doing, and I'm not saying that it's going to result in his stepping down or firing or anything else like that. I am just saying that there are some people who feel that we need to take a closer look at what he's doing because is he getting the talent through the doors that's going to allow us to really take advantage of the championship window and what time we may have left with Giannis. So it's shaky for me at best.
Yeah, I said a couple weeks ago on the show that I felt was the Bucks is due for a hard reset, both in the coaching ranks, meaning clear the room. Like every coach currently on the staff, go, just go. And then I said same with John Horst because you brought up his draft record. I look at you're going to have hopefully a top 10 pick this year. This is a deep draft. This is
Mhm.
probably the one of the most important draft picks the Bucks have had in quite some time. I know when they drafted Giannis, we didn't know what we're getting in Giannis, so you can't use that label there. But Jabari Parker, unfortunately, knees gave out with the ACL tears. But this is probably the most important draft pick since Jabari Parker. And you can't miss it. You can't get it wrong. And you look at some of the guys that Horst has drafted. And the only one that has really made an NBA impact is currently a guy you traded away for center. I can't think of his name now, but a center in Dante DiVincenzo. Like that's really the only good draft pick that John Horst has really had, in my opinion, since he's been GM. So that's why I think it's time for him to go.
Yeah, it's brutal because you're talking like you're right. This is a very important draft pick. It is incredibly deep. You have to get it right. But that's the thing. This is a very incredibly important off season because you have the coaching hire decision, you have the draft, which you're going to be in the top 10, which you have not been in a very long time. You've made the playoffs 9 straight years. It's the first time you missed it in 9 years. So you have not been in that lottery range for a very long time. So you have to get this right. You have to get the coaching decision right. And with Horst, you look at his history. He's done some really good things. Even this trading deadline with Usman Jang. Well, I mean, that was a guy who had a load of talent. He couldn't get a lick of time on OKC. Just showed you how deep OKC was. He's a guy that's incredibly talented, but you have those little dots sprinkled into like this big overarching you know thing where he's made a lot of decisions that haven't worked. You got to put in there that may have worked and did work that equals shaky ground for me. So it's incredibly important off season. You're 100% right. But are you too far into the process with anything to get rid of him? I just don't know. With it being so important, I think they ride it out with him. It's for me, it's a do or die year for him. You have to get things right because if you don't, then Giannis is going to be gone, and then so are you. And that's when they're going to do their hard reset bracket to the dark days of Bucks basketball.
The lottery pick that I mentioned, obviously, it won't likely be top 3 or top 4 because the Hawks get the better of the 2 picks with their trade with the Pelicans during the season.
Yes, if
But
they need it.
do you trade that pick and try to bring in a more of a established veteran player along with your other 2 first round picks coming up in a couple years? or do you use that draft pick and hope to get one of the very good players that this draft has?
That's why we say it's an important decision. It's an important decision because it's not just about using. You can't miss on the draft pick, right? So we said that. What we mean by you can't miss on the draft pick also means that you can't miss on the decision of the draft pick, meaning the player or how you utilize it as draft capital. So that's a very interesting question. It is something that's been relayed to me that has been discussed. How much traction that actually has, I don't know. But it's going to be very, very interesting to see if they use that bit of draft capital to try to maybe entice a trade with another young guy. The big rumor is John Morant. I don't think they're going to pursue him, but if they do, you got that right there because Memphis is going to need some firepower to kind of rebuild themselves. So who knows?
Do you make a move for John Morant? And if you do try to make that move for John Morant, is Jenkins the right guy then for that job?
Yeah, that I mean, they kind of butted heads there too. So it's I don't know. I think anything could be worked out because you remember uh, when Thibodeau was in Minnesota and Cat was there, then Cat gets traded to New York, and guess who's the head coach? Tom Thibodeau, and they seemed to work it out, and they were okay. So I'm not putting anything past anything not being okay. He could still be the guy for that job because again, he established that culture. But you have an actual super duper star in Giannis right there, and if you're going to set the culture, Giannis is going to follow his coach's lead. And if his coach says, "Hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're establishing," Giannis is going to be right there enforcing that, being that enforcer and establishing that culture throughout the entire team. So, like I said, that would be very interesting. I don't think they will pursue him. It would have to be such a. I know Memphis is looking for teams to be desperate at getting a young star, and they're looking at desperate teams trying to get that young star, but they're going to be probably a little bit desperate themselves because they could not get rid of him at the trade deadline either. So it's going to be really interesting to see if he does get moved and where he gets moved to and what he gets moved for. I think if it is there, the Bucks will definitely kick the tires on it. Whether they pull the trigger on it, who knows? But they'll do their due diligence and we'll see.
Well, and this is Talking Sports with Evan, joined by Tristain Thomas, or T Squared, Toss Sports, and you meant you talked John Morant just there. The big rumor at the trade deadline was Memphis wanted Ryan Rollins. The Bucks did not want to part with Ryan Rollins. Think the Bucks' opinions changed since the trade deadline, or do you think Ryan Rollins is still a no-go?
Still think Ryan Rollins is a no-go. He should. With a better record, he would have won Most Improved Player. I think that will go elsewhere just because of the record. But you see the work that he's put in. And again, if you get someone there with better guidance, better teachings, you can see him flourish even more. He's a good young player who's putting the work in, and you're seeing it tangibly on the court flourish. Again, a healthy Giannis and a healthy rotation like because I don't think people understand people who are watching this who maybe have not watched Bucks basketball and know the dichotomy of the team. The rotations with under Doc Rivers were just absolutely just mind-numbingly bad sometimes. You're putting him on the bench. You're starting, AJ Green over him, and then you're putting somebody else, and it's like, what are we doing? And then it's like, I don't get the rotation sometimes. Uh, that definitely has an effect on a player's confidence and their playing ability. When you're constantly putting them in, taking them out, Andre Jackson, another guy, a victim of the rotation as well. So uh,
I
a
didn't
better
realize he
rotation.
existed till the end of the year, to be honest.
I mean, he keeps surviving those cuts though. It's like it's amazing. Like he
I
keeps
thought he was
surviving.
the one that's going to be cut when they made Nance a full-time roster player. Instead, it was Cam Thomas.
Oh, 100% I thought it was gonna be him. I thought it was gonna be him a couple of times, but yet he's still there. So it's like, well, if I'm still here, it's like it's either A, my contract, or B, yet you still believe in me. So it's like there's something there. But a player's confidence is definitely affected by their playing time, and especially when they're going in, they're putting the work in, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, as Ryan Rollins has, and you see him flourish on that court. I think he's still very much a no go. He's a guy who's been reliable, who's been there. Is he a perfect player by any means? No, but good young player, continues to grow. You continue to see that on the court. And with a healthier squad, a healthier rotation, and better teachings, a better teacher, a better leader in the head coaching spot will do wonders for him and that team.
So gonna go down the Bucks roster from the end of the year and gonna get your thoughts on if they should be brought back or not. I'm gonna start with the numerical order with 00 and Jericho Sims. Is he back next year, or do you think he's gone?
Yeah, you got to have him back. Good big man, good roller to the basket, and you've seen him flourish towards the end of that season. He really started to come into his own, really started to feel confident with what he was doing and his role. You got to bring him back.
I guess when I said clear out the entire coaching room, the one guy I think I would consider keeping is whoever worked with the bigs, because Jericho Sims, Pete Nance, both took humongous jumps this season, and I think that guy might deserve to stick around with the new
I
coach.
I think that might be Vin Baker that does a lot of the work with the big men.
Next up is Miles Turner. He didn't really live up to the expectations that I think Bucks fans put on him, and Pacer fans are laughing and saying, haha, told you so. But you talked about the rotation and the usage and all that. Is he back with the Bucks, or do they look to trade him for potential assets?
I'd bring him back. Again, he can be an asset with a healthy squad, and again, a better head coach in place
And a better
that
plan.
has. Yeah, a better plan. Definitely. He was not utilized the best. They try to make him Brook Lopez when he doesn't have Brook Lopez's game. And that's just not working. You can't put a square peg into a round hole. It just does not work. So I think you bring him back, you run it back. That's another year off the contract because his contract is not trade friendly currently. So you definitely have to bring him back regardless.
Guy who kind of fell off a cliff after having a pretty good playoff series last year, except for one bad play against the Pacers until the end of the year. Gary Trent Jr. Does he come back, or is he gone?
I would love to see him come back just because, again, you talk about another rotational victim. He's another Doc Rivers victim. It's not like he had a slow start shooting last season and you saw what he turned into. He's a guy who notoriously gets off the slow starts, but then gets it going. And when he gets it going, he's an absolute demon on both ends. He
The
can
end of
get
the
it done
season.
defensively. Exactly. So it's he can get it done defensively. He can definitely still shoot that three ball with the best of them. So I will love to see him come back. I just don't know with the way things went that he'll want to come back.
Kevin Porter Jr., a guy who they got pretty much for nothing. No, offense intended for Camp, but they pretty much got him for nothing. And he's kind of been a bit of a surprise, other than this year's inability to stay healthy. I think week game 2 he left, and then he was off and on the court the rest of the year. He return next year, or is it time to part ways with him?
That's going to be very intriguing. Because you can play both him and Ryan Rollins. You don't have to choose one or the other. We've seen that they could play very well together. Uh, that's going to be intriguing. I would love to have him back. I thought he was very good, especially defensively. Getting in that passing lane, which is something that's been missing for quite a while. So you had Chris Middleton really being able to play the passing lane very well. He does that very well. Obviously, he can score it. Obviously, he can pass it. A lot of very versatile. I would love to see him come back, but again, I just what he did this year. Who knows? I think other team might look at him and might give him a little bit more money than the Bucks will probably be able to. So that's a question mark for me. I would love to see him come back, but I just don't know if the money will allow him to.
A polarizing figure at times. Most fans love him, but I see a vocal minority on X or Twitter wanting him traded. Bobby Portis. I personally love Bobby. There's some limitations to his game that I wish he would understand his own limitations at times. But I just think Bobby brings a lot of energy to the team. And I guess, is he one that you would bring back, or do you look to maybe trade him for some pieces?
Yeah, I mean when Bobby's going, Bobby's good. When Bobby's bad, it's whew, it's bad. He's getting older. You have to look at that. Uh, Man, that's a tough one. You don't want to think with your heart on this one. You want to think with your head, and think in basketball terms. I still think he has a lot to give. He can still shoot the three ball very well. Was in top five 3-point percentage for most of the season. He's a double double machine off the bench. I mean, can still provide you a spark off that bench. He's definitely not one to be trifled with. That's always good to have on your squad. So I would love to see him come back. I think the people who want him gone really just want to hop on a train of thinking what's cool. Like, yeah, Bobby's got to go. If you could get something for him that will improve the team, absolutely make that move. Uh, but I would love to see him come back off the bench. I think he's a big spark off that bench.
I kind of wonder the last couple years with just the bad Bobby we've seen. I wonder if that was kind of another, as you put it, victim of Doc Rivers. I think this one should be an easy one, but Gary Harris.
Yeah, gone. Yeah, the thing is, you're going to have to fill out that roster. But if you're going to sign the likes of guys like, if you're going to convert Pete Nance to a full NBA contract, which they did, you're going to convert Cormac Ryan to a full NBA contract, which they did. Uh,
Well, they
you're
haven't
going to
yet.
have. Well, okay, so
Yeah.
that might be in the works. Um, yeah, it's that's one of those guys that has to be gone. He didn't really add much. He can go.
Guy that missed most of the season with a neck injury, but closed out the season strong, and Terrion Prince. I was actually surprised he came back personally this most recent year, but is he back next year, or they part ways with him?
Man, when he's in there, he shoots it very well. And I know he had a rough playoff series against the Pacers. I know that that whole team had a rough playoff series against the Pacers a couple of seasons ago. But that if he can stay healthy, he's definitely still a threat from outside. He can still get it done defensively a little bit, maybe not quite to the point where he was when he was younger, but he can still get it done a little bit on defense. You got to have a bench, and you got to have an experienced bench, and I think that guy can still get it done. So I would bring him back. I'll probably bring him back cheap, but I'll definitely bring him back.
Yep. Next guy I don't have to ask you about. I already know your opinion on him, and that'd be Ryan Rollins. I'm going to jump to Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah,
Unless you want to do good stuff, unless you want to talk good about Ryan Rollins again, and we can skip Kuzma. But Kyle Kuzma.
no, you're absolutely right. um, Kuz, you keep Kuz. I think you keep Kuz. So many people rag on him, but the ones who really watch understand that when he's in the right situation, forget he was an integral part of that Lakers title team in the bubble. He really was. So you get him back to that point, which we've seen him be that in Milwaukee at times.
And
You've
Flash.
seen him.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen the flashes there. He could do that. He can definitely do that. So I don't have any problem with bringing Kuz back. I actually like Kyle Kuzma. I like what he brings to the table. Have no issue bringing him back.
Single season 3-point record holder for the Milwaukee Bucks. Closed the season kind of on a hot stretch after having quite the cold stretch for a little bit. AJ Green. Feels weird
I
saying
mean,
the single season 3-point record holder. It feels weird saying that a little bit.
it does, doesn't it? Because it's been Ray Allen, all the Walter Ray Allen, Uncle Walter, for a long time. So it's a man. So my thing with AJ Green is, I mean, he's under contract, so you're gonna have to trade him to get him out of there. But when he's shooting the ball well, it's incredible to watch.
Yeah, what do you have?
But
11 in one game?
yeah, he had 11 in one game, Bucks record. When he's shooting the ball well like that, it's incredible. But when he is not shooting the ball well, he is virtually unplayable. I know he goes out and he's trying to improve his defense and give effort on defense, and he gets a terrible defensive whistle. Let me be clear on that. He gets a very terrible defensive whistle. But when he's not shooting the ball, he is almost unplayable. So you're going to bring him back because you want to have that outside shooting surrounded around a healthy Giannis. But man, he's got to be able to do something more than just shoot. Because when that ball's not going down, when he can't throw the ball into Lake Michigan off of Bradford Beach, he's got to be able to do something other than just kind of take up space on the court.
Next guy I'm excited for, especially if they get the right coach and coaching staff in there to really work on getting his confidence up. And because especially driving to the hoop, if they can get his confidence up doing that, and that's the trade deadline acquisition guy in Usman Dang. I think I said his name right. Did I say it right?
Jane.
Jang. He's one I'm excited over. I think he has the sky's the limit with him. What 6'9", 185. Get him in the honest weight room too. I think he's a guy that could really be a big difference maker. I think obviously my position is you re-sign him for sure. I know he's going to be a restricted free agent. What's your thoughts on him long term?
Yeah, you definitely bring him back. I mean, that is a young talent. Again, I mentioned earlier, he could not get a lick of time on OKC. That just goes to show you how deep and how damn good OKC is, because he was sitting at the end of their bench. So you go and you see the type of things that he's been able to do in the Bucks uniform. Definitely get you salivating. Kind of reminds me, and I'm not saying that he is, but his game kind of reminds me of a young Kevin Durant. That's kind of what a game reminds me. He's tall, he's lanky, he can get to the cup, he can shoot the basketball. Definitely, definitely reminds me of young Kevin Durant. Again, I'm not saying he's KD, but I could definitely see young KD within him. So definitely get him back in. Definitely resign him. Get a better coach in here. Uh, like you said, put him on the Giannis weight room program, and you go and see what type of beast that guy can become.
Yeah, I'm going to skip the two-way players for now. Those are the next two. Giannis, obviously, we know your opinion on from earlier in the show. I know they just signed Pete Nance to a contract extension from the two-way deal. I guess he's probably safe.
Yeah, I would think he's safe.
And next guy's tied to Giannis, and that's Thanasis.
Well, I mean, there's a reason why he keeps getting re-signed and being with his brother, because he doesn't just mean a lot to his brother, but I think in that locker room, places that people don't see, on the team plane, on team bus, in the locker room, he means a lot to that team. Even when he was out with the Achilles last season, you seen him on the sidelines, and every time he was there, seems like something positive happened. That's kind of what he brings to the table. He's going to be an end of the bench piece. He's not going to make a difference in a playoff series, but sometimes you need those guys that kind of hold the team, glue guys, if you will, that do a lot of the dirty work in practice and keep the team together, behind the scenes. So yeah, you can bring them back. If you don't, then you don't. But Giannis is there, so you would think you bring him back.
Andre Jackson Jr.
Oh man, he has missed being a casualty of a cut or trade so many times, and it makes you wonder, like, are they keeping him there just because you need players on the bench, or do they actually believe in him? He's very athletic, obviously. If you work on his 3-point shooting, he could be a viable threat. He can get it done defensively. We've seen him do that at UConn.
We
Uh,
saw him do it against guy in Oklahoma City in the NBA Cup game.
which seems like forever. People forget that the Bucks
Locked the
beat
MVP
the
down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people forget the Bucks beat the brakes off of OKC in that Cup final. Like it was crazy. So, but I just, do you bring him back? I don't have a problem with you bringing him back if you have a plan to utilize him, or if he's just going to be an end of the bench guy. But his is an interesting case because he keeps missing. They just keep deciding to cut somebody else. He kind of just remains there. So it begs the question: what do you see in him that you want to keep him around?
I'm guessing the first two-way player is dependent on if Giannis is back or not, and that's Alex.
Yeah, I mean, he might. Yeah, I mean, he's with the herd, doing great work with the herd, obviously. Um, I don't know. At some point, you have to make some room. I would love to see a guy like Mark Sears come back from the herd and be back in the NBA. A lefty, can shoot it, has great talent. They're going to have some decisions to make with those guys. So, man, Alex is another one where do you just keep him strictly to a G League contract? Do you keep him on that two-way? It really depends on the coach and the direction that they want to go for the team.
So, final guy, and I know they don't have to make a decision on him being, they can keep him a two-way guy for now, basically what they did with Pete Nance, and just use him up until you can't anymore, until you have to make a decision. But Cormac Ryan, he is a guy that we get the Herd season over. He starts, he played really well at the Herd. Gets to
Yeah, he
Milwaukee.
did.
When he gets his opportunities, he has just shined and shined and shined and shined. And I forget who the player was, but I know there was a player on the opposing team was asking, like, where are you from? So I know he's from New York, but did the Bucks do it again? Coincidentally enough, with the guy with the name Ryan in his name, like Ryan Rollins, did they do it again with Cormac Ryan? Does he have a rotational role in the NBA, or is he going to be like just I guess flash in the pan?
You mentioned it. He did great work with the Herd. And same as Pete Nance, and those guys have been able to make it translate to the NBA, which is very hard to do. It's very hard to do because it's not like G League is full of professionals, and you get some of the most obscure guys that are winning MVP, and and then they come to the league, and it's not the same. Uh, these guys have been able to make it translate onto the court. Now, again, it depends on the coach and the direction that they're trying to go in, what they're trying to establish. But I think that guy can definitely play NBA basketball, and he's going to force them to make a decision, put him on the Bucks permanently. So I love his game. I love what he's been able to do. I'm more than happy for him because seeing him in Oshkosh, he's incredible. But seeing him on the Bucks, it's like, wow, everything they was doing in Oshkosh has basically translated to the NBA. This guy can play. I'm hoping he makes it, but I think he's going to make it very difficult. And like you said, I think the Bucks are going to probably stretch it out until they have to make a decision.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you jumping on talking about the Bucks. A couple things to kind of rapid fire with you on. Badgers athletic department. McIntosh leaves to go to the Big Ten. They are losing their chancellor to Columbia University. Their region president just got fired. Seems like the Badger athletic program is in a bit of a, I don't even know right now, but is worried at all about the Badger athletic program right now. I know they still have like the hockey and the volleyball that does really well. Football struggle, basketball can't get past the first round. Do you see McIntosh leaving kind of where there's smoke, there's fire, or is it going to be better off long term with McIntosh leaving?
Yeah, you mentioned their chancellor. According to him, he's Wolf of Wall Street. He's not effing leaving. So that's a different story for a different day, though.
Well,
But
no, that's the president. The chancellor
oh, the president. Sorry, yeah,
took
the
a job
president.
in Columbia,
The-
which isn't a big law because she
yeah, the
doesn't have that
president.
athletics at all.
Yeah. So it's with McIntosh. I think there were some people dancing in the streets because he was gone. I think he did a great job in other areas, but the thing that he probably should have reined in was Luke Fickle's relationship with alumni, past, present, past players, which I think they're making more of an effort now, but that should have been something you should have done the minute you step foot on, campus as head coach is establish those relationships. But to me, it's kind of like, okay, great. He did some good things. Women's hockey, another title. Men's hockey made another, Frozen Four. Made it to the Natty. Unfortunately, lost. There's been some good things within the athletic department, but overall, football is the moneymaker, and they have not been what they have been in the past, and that's kind of glaring. So we'll see, man. I don't know if there's smoke, there's fire, but I think that we'll see how this football season goes if that's true. I think that's the big thing. If Fickle can get things on the right track and get them to a bowl, get them to 8 wins, something positive. Uh, I think it will kind of squash that where there's smoke, there's fire. But if it's just an absolute dumpster fire, then yeah, you're gonna see that is just it's gonna be more oustings from more places, and he should be a part of it.
Yeah. Packers NFL draft a week from tonight. Packers obviously don't have a draft pick because we have Micah Parsons now in Green Bay. After last August, but Friday night they get their pick 52. Is there a position group that you are hoping they address with that pick more than the others? I think the obvious is defensive line. You got edge, you got corner, offensive line, and wide receiver. Probably wouldn't hurt to address that room a little bit. Is there a position group that you hope they address first with that 52nd pick?
Yeah, you got to go defense. I think you absolutely have to go defense just because, and I know they're kind of kicking the tires on Dexter Lawrence, and I don't think that's going to come to fruition. I don't think they're going to pull. Yeah, I don't think they're going to pull another move like that. But you have to address that because that's you can't depend on Micah Parsons to do everything.
He's out 4
But
games, anyways.
exactly, he's pretty much going to enter the season on pup. So
You
you can't.
lost Gary, you lost Igambare, so you lost pieces there.
Exactly. So you have to do that. It's an absolute area of need because yes, when Micah Parsons is out there, all the attention's on him. Everybody else ends up being great. But when he's not there, you still need to be great. So you have to go and address that situation on the line. In the backfield, I mean, you got to do something defensively to really shore that up and make sure that you don't have the same sort of fall off the cliff as you did when Micah Parsons went down with that ACL.
Yeah, you wouldn't have liked my guest last night, Jacob Westendorf's thought on who they're going to pick at 52. He's not saying he wants them to do this, but he's saying based off the Packers' history track record, probably a good chance they go. And he said they're probably going to go wide receiver out of Alabama. I think his name is Bernard. That's who he said the Packers are probably going to go with that first pick at 52. But I don't know. I hope corner or edge is that first pick, but I guess we'll see what happens. So,
and I trust Jacob because he's he's in those trenches with them. So it's if he said, yeah, I mean, we all know the track record. So I mean, if he feels that, I'm hoping he's wrong. but if they're smart, they would definitely go to an area of need as opposed to, oh, hey, here's this really fast, really good receiver. Let's go and get him when you couldn't even get Matthew Golden the ball last year. But that's a different story for a different day.
Yeah. Well, and he was just looking at wide receiver for the fact that you have Watson, Reed in the last year of their contracts. You have one of them will for sure get an extension, possibly another. And then you have unknowns and Savion Williams, and you have Sky Moore, who's also going to be a free agent, who they just signed as a punt returner. And you have maybe Bo Melton. He's a corner, but he played wide receiver out last year. Just wouldn't hurt to get a guy with a 4-year contract into that room is kind of what he was thinking.
Which I see, but you have more pressing needs.
Yeah.
Like defense is far more pressing than a wide receiver room because if you were really pressed about that wide receiver room, you would be letting Romeo Doubs walk in free agency, and you wouldn't be trading Dontavian Wicks. So if you were really truly worried about that room, you had the players. So why trade those guys away when you have and then try to go and draft another one when you have more pressing needs?
Yeah. The other reason he gave is just based off who they characteristic wise who they typically draft, their thresholds. It's more likely a wide receiver will be there at 52 than it is. So if they take a corner at 52, they're likely going to be going against their typical threshold. So that's kind of his thought process behind it. I hope they don't go wide receiver, but if they do, well, so be it. They better go defense with the next couple picks after that. Sticking with the Packers. Matt LaFleur, Goody, unknown extension length. Happy with that, or do you wish they would have went a different direction after the way the season ended?
I'm I'm fine with it. If you're gonna
Happy's not the right
dig,
word.
yeah, yeah, right. Like I'm fine with it because I will say after the playoff loss, I was like, okay, done. Like Matt LaFleur's got to. I didn't say explicitly that he had to go, but I'm like, you have to really think about like if it's time. Like you really have to think about if it's time, and they felt like it's not time. If you're going to dig in, tie their face together. If they don't get it done, then everybody's gone. You start fresh from there. So yeah, I'm fine with it. We'll see what happens. I'm hoping for the best, but I'm always preparing for the worst.
I'm going to switch sports on you here. Baseball. the new ABS system. Like it or dislike it?
I'm a fan of getting the call right. So I'm fine with it. I'm definitely fine with it. It hasn't been shown to extend games for incredible lengths like they were. That's why they put in the pitch clock and all that. Uh, so I'm a fan of getting the call right, and they have been getting the call right. So I have no problem with it.
Yeah, and I like it for two reasons. One, as you said, getting the call right. When you have, I think there's a Brewer game yesterday, like here's the top of the box and the pitch is like right here, and they called it a strike. Like normally they give how far off the zone it was. It was so far off the zone they couldn't even give it a measurement. So it gets the call right, but I also think it does a good job of showing you just overall. Some umpires are better than others, like CB Buckner is just awful. Besides the point, it just shows you just really how good Major League Baseball umpires are with how.
Yeah.
So, like, you have the strike zone, and you have a pitch like right here,
Mhm.
touching the strike zone, and the ABS system is going to call that a strike. They might call it a ball, but either way, me, that's more of a 50-50 thing. I think it shows you that these umpires are pretty darn good too.
Yeah, it really shows you how incredibly difficult their job is because you have to pay attention to a lot when you're calling balls and strikes back there. So none of them are perfect, and we're not expecting them to be perfect. But calls that that you can see, like blatantly, that you can see, like a pitch 3 feet 3 feet off the edge. It's like you're punching me out on that. No, I want that. I'm challenging that. Like, let's go.
The one thing I will say though, Gary Sanchez as the catcher, he can challenge anytime he wants. But when he's the hitter, please don't challenge anymore. Like I don't think as a hitter he's gotten one right yet.
Nope.
As a catcher, I think he's perfect as a catcher, but
Oh
as a
yeah, he's
hitter,
great.
he's not.
Yeah, he's great. He's great as a catcher, but his batter's eye, yeah, no, no,
Yeah,
dude, just leave it alone.
yeah. Don't challenge anything else. So final, back to NFL. They're training replacement reps. They're going through the process of training replacement reps to be ready for the season because the CBA for the current, I don't want to say full time reps, but not full time reps, but you know what I mean. The referees that are typically there still don't have a new contract. Are we ready for another season, partial season of replacement reps?
Yeah, and the whole reason why it's not been signed is because the NFL wants them to be full time and just do refereeing. When a lot of these guys, people don't understand, a lot of these guys are lawyers, and they do other things that make them a hell of a lot more money in the off season than just being a full time official for the NFL, which would be like I think currently just part time they get like 350 grand or something like that. It's like a six-figure number that they get
Yeah,
for part of the year being an official, and they want them to just do that. They can't do anything else. And they're like, well, hell no, we're not going to do that. We make more money doing this. We just do this because we love the game. Like, no,
yeah.
we're not going to do that. But I digress. Uh, I am not ready for another season full of replacement refs because we saw what happened the last time that we had a season of replacement refs. Can anybody say fail Mary? Hey, that was replacement refs. So I'm not ready for that to happen because that costs some coaches jobs, that costs teams playoffs and games,
Cost
and
the
yeah,
Packers a first round bye.
cost them a first round bye because of partly because of that game too. So yeah, I am not ready for this. I hope they can get something figured out. I hope the NFL does not be greedy. Don't make these guys be full time. Just keep it the way it is. It's nothing wrong with it. You have some of the best out there. They're fine doing it part time, going off the off season, being lawyers, being investment bankers, everything else, making their money. Leave them the hell alone. Get it together, sign this thing, get the real refs in here because nobody wants an inferior product, and that includes inferior referees.
I would say the one positive thing is they're actually thinking through preparation better than they did the first go around. They want them to get the
True.
OTAs, they want them to get the practices, get them to training camp so they can start interjecting themselves. But the big issue you have that I look at, so they're looking at smaller level college officials.
Hmm.
So I am, so I am a high school official. I haven't done anything beyond a couple varsity games. Other than that, it's mostly JV freshmen. But I just know from my experience with the Racine Raiders and Racine, and working alongside the officials, you have the the rule book that we have in the state of Wisconsin, the national whatever. I should know that off the top of my head, but the NFSH rule book. That's what all the high schools use. Then you have the college rule book. Some similarities, but different than the high school rule book. The NFL is their own damn rule book. There's things in the
Yeah.
NFL rule book that are not even anywhere near any other rule books. And then,
Yeah. On
so
any level.
if you're a small level college official, you're likely doing high school games. You're likely doing like semi-pro games. You're likely doing whatever. You're obviously doing your college games. That's a lot of different rule books to remember. Like what pass interference is in the NFL as opposed to college and high school, totally different as one example of that. So I just think you might run into potential problems of, oh crap, this is the NFL and I just called him down even though he wasn't
Yeah.
touched.
Yeah.
But the whistle blew, so there's nothing I can do. That's one of my biggest concerns.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you, and I love the fact that you have that perspective as an official because it's like I said, it's going to cost
They're
coaches
human,
jobs.
and they're
Yeah,
human.
they're
They're going to make
they're
mistakes.
human, and there's only so much. Like you're going to get mixed up with all those rule books. It's going to happen. Like it has happened before, but it's going to cost teams games. It's going to cost coaches jobs if you have these replacement refs on for any prolonged amount of time. And we've seen it before. And yes, you're right. They gave them a little bit more preparation this time around as opposed to last time. But there's still replacements. There's still replacements for a reason. They don't have the real officials in there. You got to get something done. You got to stop being stubborn, get it done.
Well, appreciate you jumping on. I hope you do find the lost episode. Final push on where people can find your other works that aren't lost.
Yeah, we'll find that episode. But again, if you want to go back and listen to all the other episodes of Toss, you can find them anywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Go to Toss Nation Media on YouTube. We got all the episodes there, minus this past episode, which we will find it. We will find it eventually. Again, at the 20 double on X and on Threads, Facebook.com/T on Sports Show, Toss on Facebook. We are everywhere. Find us.
Yes, I highly recommend that. Well, appreciate you coming on. We'll be doing a show next week, potentially doing a draft show next week too. I'm deciding by Sunday if I'm going to do a live draft show on Thursday. Please stay tuned for that. Just a couple things that I'm deciding on. Yes, the Packers don't have a pick, but hey, it's still fun to do. But we'll see. And got one guest for sure lined up for that for my last couple live shows that I've done with the draft, and Emlyn Thomas if I do that. So appreciate you all watching. Podcast will drop tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock Central Time. Look out for it on Spotify or anywhere you get your podcast. Otherwise, you can find it here on X. You can find it on Facebook. You can find it on YouTube as well. Talking Sports with Evan on Facebook and YouTube, and at Evan with Sports on X or Twitter, whatever you're calling it these days. With that said, have a great rest of your week. Have a safe weekend, and I'll be back at it next week.